Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Draft Room. This is the NFL Draft Podcast of the Packernet Podcast Network. By the way, if you would like to tune in or call in, that's the thing. Distracted by the Rashawn Gary news coming in. I'm just, every time something pops up, I already know the news, but it's like, oh, what's going on? If you'd like to call in, 608-561-3243 is the number to call. But today on the show, I want to go through, it was a couple days ago we went over this. Kevin Cole, every year, puts out winners and losers from the Combine. Essentially looking at least from his data analysis, you can do this a number of different ways, which Combine events, 40-yard dash, three-cone, etc., have the highest correlation to NFL value, success in the NFL, whatever, and then also how much do teams care about it. So there's a couple different angles here that I find interesting. Which guys check the boxes for teams the most? Which guys check the boxes in ways that correlate to NFL success the best? And then third is what is that gap? That would be players that are potentially over or undervalued based on what they did at the Combine. We've done we did 2 different days covering all of the defensive prospects. Today, I want to spend the entire day just going over the offensive prospects. He has running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, offensive tackles, interior offensive line. I don't think, is quarterback on here? Did I miss it, or is it just not on here? It may not be on here, probably because it doesn't mean as much, you know? They're not really... Which goes to, I don't know if I played it on here. I think I did yesterday. Oh, no. Sorry, just seeing the Gary now that botched the whole thing. He's now deleted the post saying he's leaving Green Bay. Okay, freaking A. Anyways, yeah, so as far as the quarterback thing, it's funny because I just played it yesterday. Tony Pauline, I think it was Pauline. I don't know. Essentially talking about why is there not more hype surrounding Taylon Green. And the response essentially was, who gives a crap if he can run fast? Nobody cares. So the fact that he's not even putting quarterback on the athletic measurables portion of this kind of speaks to that, I think. Anywho, without further ado, we'll start off with the running backs here. Again, this is Kevin Cole. He has a Substack called Unexpected Points. So if you want to take a deeper look, I would encourage you to go check that out. So in terms of the drills that correlate to you being drafted higher, which could be obviously perceived as teams value these traits more. This is on a scale, I don't know if it's 1 through 10 or exactly what. The numbers, as I said, are somewhat arbitrary. I could reach out and find out what exactly they mean, but just for the sake of we'll just call them arbitrary. So at above a 5, teams care about the most the 40-yard dash. After that is about a 4 for the short shuttle, then about a 2.5 for the three-cone, 2 for weight, and then it's all kind of below 1 for that, for 10-yard split, broad jump, vertical. Teams don't seem to care as much about that. As far as what values actually translate, as is usually the case, very few of these things matter hardly at all. Weight, 10-yard split, 40, broad jump, vert, and short shuttle are all not only less than 1, I would say they're less than 0.5. They don't matter. And 40, I know some other metrics have said 40-yard dash, the running back position is one of the few that actually matters. That one is about as close to 0 on his metrics as you can get. So the gap between how much teams care and how much it actually matters, according to Kevin Cole, is massive, and it's the biggest gap on this list. The only one that does sort of matter, it's at about a 1.5, is the three-cone. Weight, as with a lot of these different positions, is actually negative. It's still at, we'll call it 0.5, but you've got about negative 0.5, meaning to a small degree, the lighter weight, the better. Whereas teams with a, we'll call it 2 out of 10, care about weight in a positive direction. So with these things in mind, you take all the events and the weights and all that stuff and you weight it out and see kind of where everybody falls on these metrics. And we can see a couple different things. If you look at team value, how much teams would like these people based on what they did or how much they like their combine performance, however is best to phrase it. So if we look at this, not surprisingly, as far as who's going to be the most blown away, and honestly, it cuts both ways. He was the best in both categories. But the top dog here is going to be Mike Washington Jr., almost 99th percentile in terms of how much he just absolutely blew that out of the water. The other one that teams will love is Jeremiah Love at 91%. Then it drops almost all the way down to below 70% with Jam Miller. So there's two guys at the top and then a whole bunch of after that. As for actual value, Mike Washington is still at the top, but not as much as he probably should be. Again, teams have him at 98.6%. His actual value percentage is 83%. So there's a gap of, 15.6% there. Next highest is still Jeremiah Love, but an even bigger gap because although he had 90.7% on the draft percentage, he's at 70.7% on the value percentage, so a 20-point gap there. After that, it drops down to Damon Clark at 65.6, so it drops pretty rapidly. Both of them seem to agree that from a measurable standpoint, there's not a ton going on here. In fact, they both agree there's really only two, and that's Mike Washington and Jeremiah Love. It's just a question of to what degree. As far as over or undervalued, the biggest overvalue would be Jeremiah Love at 20%. Then Adam Randall, 18.6% too high. Mike Washington, 15.6. Jam Miller, 13.8. On the undervalued side, Robert Henry Jr., 20.3%. Eli Heidenreich. I feel like I'm committing war crimes just reading that name. 12.4%. And then Jamari Taylor, 12.2%. The one maybe to keep an eye on here would be Mr. Heidenreich. The reason I say that is because Henry and Taylor, the other two guys on this list, and I guess we could throw Damon Claiborne in there too, but Taylor and Henry, neither of them have very good scores. They're at 45 and 42%. Heidenreich and Damon Claiborne actually do have relatively positive grades. The value percentage for Heidenreich is 62%, 62nd percentile, whatever, and teams value him at 49.6. Claiborne, 65.6 compared to 55.6, so 10 percentage points. So undervalued and still valuable. And I'll tell you what I'll do. I will, I think for each position, select one player to highlight here. And in this case, it will be Mr. Heidenreich, Eli Heidenreich. And he's actually an interesting prospect because he's a sort of a wide receiver running back hybrid. I don't know necessarily what the consensus is across all 32 teams. So a little bit about Mr. Eli Heidenreich. First of all, 0-star, unrecruited player, despite being a pretty solidly decorated high school player. His family has Navy roots. His grandfather and his uncle served in the Navy. He also had a childhood friend that was at Navy, so it just kind of made sense that that was the direction that he would go. He initially redshirted in 2022 before exploding in Navy's ultimate snipe weapon across 3 varsity seasons, finishing as the program's all-time receiving yards leader with 1,994 and career receiving touchdown king of 16 touchdowns while adding 1,157 rushing yards and 7 more scores. Just real quick, looking at his pretty remarkable career here at Navy. His PFF grades from 23 to 25, overall grades 83, 91, and 93. His rushing grades 84, 83, and 86. His receiving grades 80, 95, and 95. So just dominant across the board. Statistically, the receiving was more in terms of his total yardage. But, I mean, grades, stats, pretty dominant across the board. 2025 senior campaign cemented his legacy, an 8-catch, 243-yard, 3-touchdown explosion versus Air Force that shattered single-game receiving records, followed by a record-breaking 146-yard day at South Florida. Second-team All-AAC honors, Doak Walker watch list nod, East-West Shrine Bowl invitee, capped a career that saw him start 30 games and deliver in every spotlight moment. He also had the game-winning 4th-and-goal touchdown versus Army. He rewrote Navy's receiving history in an offense built for triple option, setting single-game career touchdown and all-time yard marks while still rushing for over 1,100 career yards. From Mount Lebanon State champ to future U.S. Marine officer with a cyber operations degree, Heidenreich embodies leadership and toughness forged in western Pennsylvania and Annapolis. At the 2026 East-West Shrine Bowl, he clocked the fastest on-field speed among running backs at 20.01 miles per hour and flashed 3 catches for 20 yards plus 4 rushes for 21 while winning one-on-one drills against linebackers. Currently projected as a priority UDFA with legitimate gadget and special teams upside. To be clear, he is listed at 179 in the consensus board, so that would indicate that potentially he is higher than this. Pro comps, they got James White and Danny Woodhead, compact, reliable pass catchers out of the backfield who carved out decades-long careers on third down and in screen game with elite football IQ and toughness. No real injury history, fully durable throughout college, no major injuries, missed games, or surgeries on record. So there you go. And again, remember, this will all be link in the description on my 2026 big board, all the data we've talked about here about Mr. Heidenreich. That does include, by the way, the pronunciation guide, which apparently is Heidenreich. So, freaking nailed it. All right, let's get to wide receiver here pretty quickly. Again, teams care about a ton of stuff. In fact, the thing that teams care the least about is the broad jump. That's about as much as 40 and weight matter for wide receivers. So those are the two highest correlation, and it's about 0.5. None of these matter a ton. But weight is about a half, 40 is about a half, 10-yard split is close to a half, the rest is less than that. As far as what teams care about the most, 40 is about a 3.5, and then you've got between a 1 and a 2 weight, arm length, 10-yard split, and vert. And weight is positive for wide receivers. It's one of the few that is. So if we look at the guys teams like the most, Jeff Caldwell, 99.9%. That's freaking crazy. After that is Bryce Lance, J. Michael Sturdivant, and Dejon Stribling. All of these guys are at 90% or higher. 91.1% for Stribling. Still very high. You've got Deion Burks, Ted Hurst, Chris Brazzell, Xavier Thomas, Caleb Douglas, and Skylar Bell. Those are all 80 and above. And then Jacoby Lane and Kendrick Law are 70 and above. Then you got a big drop-off down to Colby Young at 59%. In terms of actual value, still Jeff Caldwell, 99.8%. Man, that is freaking wild. After that is Bryce Lance, again, 97.7%, Stribling at 91.2%, Michael Sturdivant at 90.2%. So pretty broad agreement, actually, across the board on that. After that, you had Ted Hurst at about 85%, Caleb Douglas, 83%, Brazzell at 83%, Xavier Thomas, Deion Burks, and Skylar Bell in the 70s. And then it drops down to 69.8 and all that down there. As far as the gap, the over and underrated, the two that are kind of overrated, but not really in a way that matters because both of them are very low graded, would be Berrien Brown at 10%, 14% compared to 24%, and Brennan Thompson. Thompson may be a little bit relevant. He's at about 45% for teams value. He's at about 28% for value. There also are not a ton of underrated guys. There's nobody at 10% or more. The guys at 5% or more are Chase Roberts, Colby Young, Dylan Bell, Jeremy Bernard, and Malachi Fields. And of that group, only 3 of them are at 50% or higher. Jeremy Bernard is at 64%, Dylan Bell at 51%, and then Colby Young at 66%, with teams valuing him at about 59%. So, why don't we talk about Mr. Colby Young, the wide receiver out of Georgia? So, first of all, he is a 6'5", 218-pound, 3-star recruit out of Binghamton, New York. He was a lightly recruited 3-star recruit, number 55 nationally among JUCO prospects, number 7 wide receiver. Took the scenic route, going first to Lackawanna Junior College, then spending 2 years at Miami, followed by 2 years at Georgia. In 2024, he flashed immediately before off-field issues sidelined him. We'll get to that in a minute. In 2025, he led UGA receivers early with 26 grabs for 358 yards and a score in 8 games before a season-altering injury. He's a big-body X receiver whose SEC production was limited by external factors, but whose combination of size, hands, and sudden testing athleticism will scream upside. So he is, as mentioned, a prototypical X receiver. He's a solid red zone threat, 50-50 guy, solid hands, deceptive speed. The issues, again, have to do with, well, partially there's not a lot to go off of here. He has 116 receptions for 1,480 yards in total and 13 touchdowns in his 4 years between Miami and Georgia. Not to mention he spent time at a JUCO school, making him, a little bit older as well. So not a lot of production, number one. Number two, the reason for the lack of production is, first of all, an injury, which is not good. He suffered a fractured lower leg, confirmed tibia fibula area, in October 2025 win over Ole Miss, missing the final 6 regular season games before returning for the Sugar Bowl, where he had 3 catches for 22 yards. So that is in and of itself a bit of a flag. The bigger red flag comes from an October 2024 domestic incident, initial battery and assault charges involving a pregnant ex-girlfriend, which led to a 5-game suspension. Young pleaded not guilty to disorderly conduct in January 2025, received 12 months of probation, $500 fine, and completed a family violence intervention program. The woman later recanted and asked for charges to be dropped. Georgia cleared him via Title IX and reinstated him with no further incidents in 2025. So, who knows exactly what happened. It's definitely going to be a red flag, whether you want to give him the benefit of the doubt that nothing happened and she just lied, or if you want to look at it and say she lied the second time when she said nothing happened. I don't know. But teams are going to worry about charges like that. Those are obviously extremely serious. But looking at his PFF grades, he was pretty solid. His first year, he had a 63. After that was 70, 70, and 76. His receiving grades were 68, 71, 69, 77. So he's been pretty solid, pretty consistent. Big dude. Comps, Kenny Golladay and Alan Lazard. Primary comp being Kenny Golladay, massive 6'4" frame, elite high point ability, contested catch dominance, physical yak style mirror Young's tape. Both tested better than expected for their size and flash special teams value. The jump ball specialist who punishes smaller DBs archetype. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back and look at the final positions here, which include tight end, offensive tackle, and interior offensive line. We'll be right back. All right, so for tight end, the metrics that teams care about the most, again, the 40-yard dash. It's kind of pathetic how much that correlates to everything, but it really does. That's at about a 3. Between a 2 and a 3, you've got weight and broad jump, and then the only other big one is short shuttle between a 1 and a 2. As far as what actually correlates, the only one above a 1 is weight, and it's a positive correlation. Otherwise, 3-cone and short shuttle are roughly just a little below 0.5. So not a ton, but it's something. Looking at tight ends, the teams like the most, you've got Sam Roush at 96, Kenyon Sadiq 96, Eli Stowers 91. Then down from there, you've got John Michael Gallant. Or no, excuse me. I got to make this a little bigger. Gillenborg. Then in the 70s, you got Matthew Hibner, Will Kazmarek, Dalen Bentley, and Eli Raridan. Whatever. Value side, they're significantly less. So NFL teams like a lot of tight ends. The value side of it would say there's not that many that are worth very much. Sam Roush at 96, so that's an agreement there. And then Will Kazmarek at 81. Then it drops down to 63. So really not a lot of love here and a lot of overrating. So if you look at 10% or higher, here's the full list that would that Kevin would say are largely overrated. Josh Cuevas, Matthew Hibner, Tanner Koziol, Bauer Sharp, Jack Endries, Jaron Kanik, Eli Raridan, Marlon Klein, John Michael Gillenborg, R.J. Maryland, Kenyon Sadiq, and Eli Stowers. In fact, some of these are massive. Stowers is at 48% gap, 91% the draft percentage. Value percentage is 42%. R.J. Maryland, there's 43% teams like him, 13% based on value. Kenyon Sadiq, 96 compared to 56. There is one guy, though, that is seen as being undervalued relatively significantly, although not seen as very valuable. Still, only 3 in total are underrated. One is 0.5%, which is Sam Roush. One is 6.6%. And then 13.7% is Miles Kitzelman. He's currently 218 on the consensus board, so you're talking a day 3 guy, but still draftable, tight end out of Tennessee. So let's take a look at Miles Kitzelman, tight end out of Tennessee, 6'5", 255 pounds. Went to Linden High School at Linden, Kansas. Participated in the 2026 American Bowl and East-West Shrine Game. Another 0-star recruit. 0 FBS offers, only a partial scholarship to Emporia State before JUCO at Hutchinson Community College. He signed with Alabama after 1 season there, saw minimal action in 2 years as a reserve, and then transferred via portal to Tennessee in 2024. When he got to Tennessee, he was a blocking specialist. After his 2 quiet seasons at Alabama, immediately earned the starting job in 2024, starting all 13 games. In 2025, he started 11 games before a late-season leg injury, finished with 26 catches, 253 yards, 2 scores. He was a Mackey Award preseason watch list guy, Leadership Council member, and SEC Academic Honor Roll honoree who graduated December 2025. He's a classic blocker-first tight end who developed reliable receiving chops and leadership intangibles to become a scheme-versatile day 3 projection. He played offensive tackle and defensive end in high school. The combine did not go fantastic. Again, that's kind of what we're talking about here. Teams will undervalue him probably because of things like his 4.9 40, which was last among tight ends. He also reacted with a hot mic moment of what the after his 40-yard dash. Models his game after Rob Gronkowski and proved it with the sturdy pass pro anchors and red zone reliability despite his modest production. Teams that are willing to buy his blocking tight end that can catch profile will love his intangibles. As far as that injury, it was a lower body leg injury in the third quarter versus New Mexico State. Missed the final 2 regular season games, Florida and Vanderbilt, but returned to start the Music City Bowl. No other major injuries across 43 FBS games. Primary comp is Tyler Conklin, exact body type, willing inline blocker who excels in the run game, wins short routes without elite separation, or yak juice. By the way, we're talking, for the second time now, very limited production. In his 4 years between Alabama and Tennessee, 51 receptions, 583 yards, and 6 touchdowns. That's it. It's also worth noting that for whatever it's worth, PFF really not that impressed with his blocking ability. Gave him just a 58 run blocking grade and a 71 pass blocking grade. Remember, run blocking is the vast majority of what you're going to be doing in terms of blocking. Okay, let's take our final break, and then we'll rip through the last 2 positions, which are on the offensive line, tackle and interior offensive lineman. We'll be right back. All right, offensive tackles now. This one actually has a correlation that's quite hilarious, first of all, but it's bigger than like a 1. It's actually a 2. And teams seem to care about all the exact right things. So the things teams care about the most, 40. The highest impact, the 40. What do teams care about the second most? Roughly 10-yard split. Actually, let's do it this way. They care about 10-yard split, vert, 3-cone, and short shuttle. The next most important, 10-yard split, vert, 3-cone. Not short shuttle as much. But there's actually some decent correlations here. Teams just tend to care more than they should. And then strangely, vert and 3-cone, they care a little bit less than they should. At about a 1 to 1.5 is 10-yard split vertical and 3-cone, and again, over a 2 is 40 as far as how much they actually matter. And then you've got weight and arm length, which are the opposite. Teams actually want negative with arm length and weight, which seems entirely backwards. But again, what we're finding, what you'd see if you looked at the data, is that the shorter arm guys have a better chance of getting drafted higher than the super long arm guys, despite all the hype. I mean, obviously they want longer arms, but when the rubber meets the road, they care more about other things that probably correlate to shorter arm guys, like smaller guys that run faster 40s kind of thing. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean they actually want shorter arms. It just, this is generally where they end up getting drafted. So anywho, guys that teams will fall in love with the most, Max Ihanachor, Monroe Freeling, Spencer Fano, all in the 90s, Caleb Lomu, Blake Miller, Caden Proctor, and Jude Bowery in the 80s, Austin Barber, Diego Pounds in the 70s, and then it drops down to 69. In fact, it's that's a 70. The text is just weird. As for the highest values, Monroe Freeling, Spencer Fano, and Ihanachor, and Caden Proctor in the 90s, Caleb Lomu, Blake Miller, Jude Bowery in the 80s, Austin Barber, Caleb Tiernan in the 70s. And then that is all she wrote for that. So again, a decent amount of they're in agreement with a lot of that stuff. The overrated guys would be Carver Willis, although not very liked by either. 28% value, 41% draft. And then Cage Casey, 19% compared to 26%. If you're looking at underrated, though, there are a few different options. Alan Heron is 6% underrated. Caden Proctor, 6% underrated. J.C. Davis out of Illinois, 8.7% underrated. Caleb Tiernan, 8.7%. And then Mark Bell out of Miami, Florida. His draft percentile is 38.0%. His value percentile is 53.3%. He is currently number 199 on the consensus board, so the most underrated tackle. It's Mr. Mark Bell out of Miami, Florida, 6'9", 346 pounds out of Cleveland, Mississippi. Another zero-star recruit out of Cleveland Central High School in Cleveland, Mississippi. An overweight kid pushing 400 pounds with almost no recruiting buzz. Bet on himself at Holmes Community College, slimmed down dramatically, dominated, and exploded onto the scene as a 4-star JUCO prospect, ranked number 1 offensive tackle, number 4 overall JUCO player. He chose Miami over SEC powerhouses like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Auburn, enrolling in 2024. Mario Cristobal immediately dubbed him the human skyscraper. He's the ultimate late bloomer success story who turned raw, overwhelming size into a high major starter in just 2 years. So just 2 years in Miami. He played almost exclusively at left tackle, played about a half a year in 2024, 58 run blocking grade. In 2025, that went up to a 66. In 2024, he had a 64 pass blocking grade that went up to an 84. So he played about a half of a season in 2024, gave up 3 sacks. In 2025, it was 0 sacks. He cut his hits in half from 2 to 1, despite, again, double the amount of play. And his hurries went from 13 to 14. So he gave up 3 less total pressures, 3 less sacks, 1 less hit and gave up one more hurry from 13 to 14. The only real negative here is that he went from 4 to 7 penalties. Again, that's about breaking even, but still 7 penalties, I guess. But absolutely grew quite a bit. Has again, one actual full year as a starter and was very, very good as a left tackle. He was also described by some as arguably the best pass-protecting tackle at the Senior Bowl. Then he ran a jaw-dropping 5.36 second 40 at 346 pounds and earned ESPN's Big Riser status at the Combine. Miami actually routinely put Bell on screens and perimeter runs. Once the skyscraper gets moving downhill, linebackers and defensive backs have zero chance. So, elite length and frame dominance, vice grip hands and play strength, surprising athleticism for his size, reliable pass pro anchor, run game displacement, space movement, and versatility. Weaknesses, high pad level, obviously when you're 7 feet tall. Struggles versus speed and inside counter. Run blocking needs refinement. No injury history whatsoever. It's one of the perks of not playing very much football. No off-the-field issues. Primary comp, King Dunlap, former Chargers tackle. Both massive, long-limbed tackles who relied on overwhelming length and strength to keep rushers at bay. Dunlap carved out a solid NFL career as a swing/starter, thanks to the same you-can't-teach size traits that Bell possesses. All right, final one here, interior offensive line. If we look at the metrics that matter the most, definitely the short shuttle for the interior guys. That one's at above a 2, and then also 3-cone between a 1 and a 2. Nothing else really matters at all. What do teams care about? Go figure. The 40 at nearly about a 5. Then weight, arm length, and short shuttle. The next highest, followed a little bit by broad jump and maybe a tiny bit 3-cone. Put that all together, and what do you get? Well, the guys that teams are going to like the most, Micah Morris, 99%, followed by Jalen Farmer, Keelan Rutledge, and DJ Campbell in the 90s, Jager Burton, Josh Braun in the 80s, Dylan Wade, Febechi Nwaiwu, Emmanuel Pregnon in the 70s. Actual value, Keelan Rutledge in the 90s, Farmer, Burton in the 80s, Logan Jones, DJ Campbell, Micah Morris, Dylan Wade in the 70s. So, what does that do for us? A lot of overrated guys. Guys that are overrated by 10% or more. Garrett DiGiorgio, DJ Campbell, Vega Ioane, Pregnon, Josh Braun, Nwaiwu, Morris, Reed Adams, and Taylor. Man, reading these names is just going to kill me. Logan Taylor out of Arkansas has a 66 percentile for how much teams like him. 32nd percentile for value. Same with Armaj Reed Adams, 63 compared to 34. So a lot of guys 10 and above, and then several even 20 and above and 30 and above for in the case of Logan Taylor. As far as underrated, though, there are also quite a few. Parker Brailsford is at 9%, Jake Slaughter 9.5%, Bo Stevens at 11% underrated, Fernando Cormoa, 12%. Sam Hecht, 13%. Evan Biernston at 16.7%. And then my dude, Logan Jones, 24%. The team value puts him at about 53%. The value percentile is 77%. And we're in somewhat of a weird territory here because Logan Jones is the most underrated, but we've already talked about Logan Jones. Evan Biernston out of Nebraska is at like consensus nearly 350. So I'd rather not spend a ton of time on that, given that he is unlikely draftable candidate. So that brings us to Sam Hecht, interior offensive lineman out of Kansas State. I think that's how you say his name. Let me double check that. I always look it up and then I forget, and it's like, what's the point of even looking it up? Yeah, it is Hecht. But 6'4", 303 pounds out of Shawnee, Kansas, went to Mill Valley High School. Another zero-star recruit. despite his pedigree and academic excellence. He arrived at Kansas State as a preferred walk-on in the 2021 class. Redshirted, paid his dues in limited reserve snaps in 22 and 23, then exploded into the starting lineup. Played 42 games across 5 seasons. Took over the full-time job in 2024, earning all Big 12 second-team honors. In 2025, he started all 12 games, earning all Big 12 first-team coaches and second-team AP honors, plus votes for Big 12 Offensive Lineman of the Year. He finished with 0 accepted penalties. That's pretty wild. And contributed to top 10 national rankings in sacks allowed. Hecht did go to the Senior Bowl, arrived in Mobile, a late day 3 graded prospect, left as one of the event's clear winners, dominated in one-on-ones, including holding his own against top interior rushers and flashing positional versatility at guard. Catapulted him clearly and firmly into the day 2 conversation. In his entire time at Kansas State, not just his 2 years, 0 sacks given up. In fact, just 1 hit, which was back in 2022, when he only had 6 pass blocking reps, which explains why he had a 0 pass blocking grade that year. But in 850 pass blocking reps across his 4 years, 2 years as a starter, 0 sacks and 1 hit given up, just 19 hurries, 20 total pressures in his time there. William V. Campbell Trophy semifinalist with multiple academic All-Big 12 honors, including a 4.0 GPA stretch, a Remington Outland watch list nod. Hecht diagnoses twists and stunts and blitzes faster than most veterans. High IQ player. Very durable, starting all 25 games over his final 2 seasons, missing 0 time due to injury. No off-the-field stuff. Again, academic honors, all that stuff. Primary comp, Tanner Bornoliti. Why can't I speak? What is wrong with me, dude? Tanner Bortolini. I am fading here, boys. The secondary and more recognizable comp is Tyler Biadasz. Thick build, sturdy anchor, alert eyes, and consistent technique without overwhelming athleticism or length. Hecht plays with the same steady, high IQ presence that has kept Biadasz starting for years. Okay, 22.9 years old also. Oh, and where is he on the consensus board here? Come on. H-E, what is it? C? There it is. Hecht. 91. So yeah, day 2. Late day 2, presumably, but day 2. There it is, center Ryan Kelly retiring. Freaking thought so. Anywho, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.